Guys, I need to address the controversy. I'm sorry for calling Princess Luna Nightmare Moon. To be fair, I think she's name dropped like a single time in the entire first season. I guess my brain was in Subway Surfer mode when I was first watching it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, be sure to check out my video on the first season of My Little Pony, and then pop back over to this video once you're done. I am positively certain that while being more of an outlier when it comes to the target audience of My Little Pony, depending on who you ask, I guess, that I'm watching the show at an age where I can thoroughly appreciate all the little things that go into making this show. And I certainly enjoyed the first season, but there was this feeling that I had deep down that I was only scratching the surface of what this show had to offer. So before we hop into things, let me know in the comments what your favorite part of season 2 was. I'm really curious to see what you guys think. And boy, did season 2 begin with a much different start, despite sorta having the same formula as the season 1 premiere had, but this time with a twist. In season 1, the season premiere was all about the main characters sort of discovering why they are a friend with magic, almost like the name of the show. There were a series of individual tests that all lent to their specific strengths, such as Rarity showing off how generous she is when she lends her tail to the river dragon, or Rainbow Dash showing her loyalty by not leaving all of her friends in the dust. However, this time around, the season begins with each of the main characters being tested on whether or not they're worthy of the title of Elements of Harmony, I don't know, they need to work on a team name. And it's all because of this guy, who really lives up to the name. I can see him hunched over his PC right now, banning someone in the MLP chat for roasting his Discord kid. With Princess Luna purified and Nightmare Moon defeated, a new evil needed to be unleashed for our characters to confront. And Discord is a great new direction, as he feels like the Joker to Nightmare Moon's Thanos, if that makes sense. This dude lives for chaos and lives in a society, I think. And although he was thought to be locked away forever due to the combined efforts of Luna and Celestia many moons and suns ago, this seal was broken once Celestia lost the power to use the elements of harmony. And I'll be honest, when did Celestia lose this power? Was it back in season 1 when the main characters inherited the power from her? I don't know. Let me know if they explain this in later seasons down in the comments. Also, because of the cold open, I totally thought it was the Cutie Mark Crusaders' fault for the near end of the world, due to them being a little goofy, and I'll say it, a bit silly after arguing over what makes Discord so Discordy, which sounds to me like a little bit of body shaming over here. Not cool, guys. They seemingly caused the crack in the statue that Discord was trapped in, but it's later explained in the episode that that's not the case. Anyways, if you watch the first video, you'll know my thoughts on the Cutie Mark Crusaders as a whole, but we'll get to my updated thoughts on them in a little bit. After a bit of party rock antheming, Discord explains how he has returned, and not only that, how he has stolen the elements of harmony and hidden them in the iconic Canterlot hedge maze. And the only way to get them back is by performing a series of tests to see if they are still worthy of their element of harmony-ness, like I mentioned earlier. And I really enjoy this premise, especially since the season 1 premiere was really the only time that we got to see the main ponies use their specific element in any meaningful capacity. Like, of course, Pinkie Pie is laughing all the time, and Twilight Sparkle is constantly using her magic, but so do many of the other characters on this show. So I feel like putting their specific elemental skills to the test really makes their title of the inheritors of the elements of harmony a bit more earned, but I'm getting ahead of myself. After arriving in the hedge maze, Discord meets the ponies in the flesh, strips the unicorns of their horns and the pegasi of their wings, so they can feel what it feels like to be among the peon ponies, and promptly separates the ponies so he can test them individually. This leads all the ponies down the road to chaos, which is exactly what Discord wanted to do, and they each adopt the opposites of their elemental powers, such as Applejack becoming a white liar, Pinkie Pie becoming depressed, and Rarity becoming so greedy that she starts lugging around a giant rock that she is blinded into thinking is a big old diamond. However, I think my favorite Bizarro version of the ponies is Fluttershy, as she becomes the most spiteful character in all of television history, made funnier by the fact that she was so full of kindness that Discord couldn't even manipulate her like the other ponies, and he just straight up hypnotizes her out of frustration. They each get possessed by Discord taking the forms of each of their specific cutie marks, which I think is a really nice touch. Distraught from all her friends being the worst, Twilight Sparkle goes back to her house where she stored the magical girl crowns that they earned in season 1, and she tries to force the elements of harmony onto the Bizarro versions of her friends, but this obviously doesn't faze Discord at all, who just chills there with his mom glasses until Twilight Sparkle finally gives up, becoming gray like the rest of her friends. That is, until all of the letters that Twilight Sparkle wrote to the princess back at the end of the episodes in season 1 begin violently erupting out of spite, which is a bit disturbing, even though it's a pretty great contextualization of the first season as a whole, and this conveniently reverses Twilight Sparkle's grayness. And so, Twilight Sparkle is able to jab her unicorn horn into all of her friends and reverse this grayness in order to reunite the true elements of harmony, her friends. This leads them back to Discord, and using their newfound friendship connections, they're able to turn the dragon pony dude back into stone, and the day is saved once again. Overall, I thought the season premiere was pretty strong, but I do wish Discord had a bit more screen time to show off more of his wackiness, as they sort of just cycled through the chocolate milk rain, the terrifying giraffe rabbits, and the ballerina buffalo, as sort of just this wacky chaos and disorder in Discord's new Ponyville. Despite this, it really felt like this season took it up a notch compared to season 1, especially in the finale, but even just in these first 2 episodes. One thing that stood out to me this season was how they handled the letters to Celestia at the end of each episode. Now, I feel like if any other show was tackling this major shift between seasons, they would just do it without any specific contextualization. But we actually get a really great 3rd episode that not only explains why more ponies than just Twilight Sparkle can send the letter to Celestia now, but we also get a bit of character work showing Twilight Sparkle panicking after she hasn't learned anything about the power of friendship in a whole week, and sort of showing her spiral as she tries to create situations that don't need to be happening just for the sake of writing a letter. And that's really the standout here. Every character gets at least an episode or 2 to shine, and the season overall feels a bit more balanced when it comes to episodes focused on certain characters, as I feel like the first season tended to focus a lot on Twilight Sparkle, obviously, but also Rainbow Dash and especially Applejack, and I feel like the other 3 ponies got a little more time in the spotlight. Still not perfectly balanced or anything, but I think we're getting closer. For some examples, Rarity gets an episode about the pressure of being like a lower class citizen. Fluttershy gets an episode about not letting everyone, or every pony walk all over her. And Pinkie Pie gets a few episodes about the boundaries around making friends, which she promptly ignores, but we'll ignore that. The greatest example of this is when she keeps pestering this poor donkey to become friends with her, but ignores all of the signals that he just wants to be left alone, which, same. The resolution of this episode is really cute, I will admit, but my point still stands. This is a side note, but at the end of the episode, this show becomes obsessed with putting donkey characters into the show. I feel like I saw a donkey like every single episode after this episode aired, which I thought was an interesting choice. MLP fans, rise up. Another thing that I got a lot of comments about in my first video was not mentioning any of the fantastic songs that they include in some of the episodes. I'm so sorry, Winter Wrap-Up fans. That one was on me for not mentioning it, even though it was stuck in my head for literally the entire time I was filming that first video. Rarity gets a fun song in that episode that I mentioned about her wanting to be with all of the upper class ponies. Pinkie Pie sings like 4 songs in that donkey episode, and the finale is basically a 40-minute musical on its own. While the music wasn't quite as memorable as season 1, I didn't have any of the songs stuck in my head necessarily. It was still a really consistent part of the season that still made it stand out. Another quick aside is the world building that was established this season. They used a Christmas special to tell us more about how pony society came to be and the role that the ponies have to play in keeping their ecosystem thriving. And it's another way the show contextualizes what it shows to its audience in a believable way which is more than a lot of adult-focused TV shows can say about themselves. Like, I feel like we're just spoon-fed exposition nowadays that would not realistically be said in the context of a scene just for the sake of exposition. So good on you, Pony Show. Okay, I got a little off track. Where were we? Now, before I hop into the season finale, I did promise an update on my thoughts on the Cutie Mark Crusaders, and they were a little better this time around, I'll admit. Now, their main thing is still obviously forcing their Cutie Mark to pop on out, even leading Apple Bloom to cast a spell on herself that causes her to get 30 cutie marks in one episode. But I found the episodes where they were just guys being dudes to be the most enjoyable. One such example of this is the Valentine's Day episode, where they try and set up their teacher and Big Macintosh of all ponies on a date, eventually leading them to give them a love potion that obviously goes horribly wrong, and it really just sells the mischief of the Cutie Mark Crusaders without repeating the same plot line in just different ways over and over, like in the past episodes that they were featured in. Like, they still learn a lesson, but it's handled in a different way that is much appreciated. And I think it's very funny that the teachers and Big Mac keep up the bit just to traumatize them just a little bit. Look, I'm not as much of a Cutie Mark Crusader hater as I was in the first season, but they're on thin ice. One thing I really thought that made the season stand out compared to season 1 was the lack of through line, as the season 1 finale ended with the Grand Galloping Gala, which was heavily hinted at throughout a few of the season 1 episodes. I don't think this is necessarily a super big issue, and overall I think the season 2 finale is probably my favorite pair of episodes so far, but a few of the major elements of the final 2 episodes really feel like they sneak up on you. You don't really get that sense of build-up that I got in the first season. And the biggest case of this is the reveal of Twilight Sparkle's older brother, Shining Armor, which just never sounded like a name. I had to like train my brain to remind myself that they weren't just talking about a suit of horse armor somewhere in the castle or something. Like, okay, I know this is a show with characters named like Silver Spoon and Pumpkin Cakes, but it took me a minute, okay? As well as his fiance, the Alicorn Princess Cadence, who both play a pivotal role in this finale. Is it a requirement that all princesses be alicorns? Or is it like the other way around? Are all alicorns princesses? Anyways, I love how their character arcs were handled in this finale, especially the relationship between Twilight Sparkle and Shining Armor. But I did find that I was missing a little bit of that build-up that the first season had. Even if the season 1 finale was more of an anti-finale, I'm sure, like many things in this season, they'll be elaborated on in the future. We still got a lot of seasons to go, but as it stands, it was a little jarring. Without further ado, let's dive into that finale because boy oh boy, there is so much more to talk about this time around. The finale once again takes place in the palaces of Canterlot, but this time it is to host the wedding between Princess Cadence and Shining Armor. And on a picnic, Twilight Sparkle receives an invitation for the wedding, which makes her feel a little disrespected that he hadn't mentioned anything about this wedding beforehand to her, giving the whole situation a shroud of unease. This unease is bolstered by the fact that Cadence is kind of the worst, especially to Twilight Sparkle, which shocks her because she was actually someone that took care of Twilight Sparkle when she was younger. However, when Twilight Sparkle tries to confront her brother and even her friends about Cadence being, the literal worst, they completely disregard her, as the latter are too busy preparing to be bridesmaids in this big royal wedding, as the last bridesmaids left because Cadence was, say it with me, the worst. The tipping point here is when Twilight Sparkle sees Cadence putting an evil spell on her brother in secret, supposedly forcing his hand in marriage for nefarious purposes. And look, if I saw someone put the Jungle Book's hypnotic eyes on someone, I would report them too, especially since Twilight Sparkle is kind of traumatized from the season 2 premiere when all of her friends, got hypnotized. With her intentions good, she runs into the wedding rehearsal to confront Cadence, and she has the perfect cover story. Of course, this leads Shining Armor to ban his own sister from his own wedding for accusing Cadence of such brutal accusations, and this only deepens the rift between the siblings that was already kind of apparent since the first couple minutes of the episode when she received the invitation. So she's convinced that her suspicions were incorrect, and she goes back to actually apologize to Cadence for, accusing her of being an evil mastermind, only to get sent down to hell. We learned that Cadence was actually being impersonated by a changeling named Chrysalis. Chrysalis. My orthodontics do not like that name. And her goal is to kind of just take over everything. Classic. However, we find that the real Cadence has actually been sent to hell with Twilight Sparkle, which we find is just some caves deep down below the castle, but close enough. And so Twilight Sparkle and the actual Princess Cadence have to make their way all the way back up to the surface to stop the royal wedding before it's too late. It doesn't help that Shining Armor is in charge of creating this big force field around the entire kingdom, seemingly for the rest of his life. So with him all mind controlled, it's kind of Canterlot's entire security destroyed from the inside all at once. All because of one pony. But fear not. Twilight Sparkle and Cadence make it back to the wedding where Chrysalis reveals her true form, which is pretty sick, I'm not gonna lie. And with her cover blown, she sends in her entire changeling army to begin their invasion. And this is another thing that I thought was a real step up this season. While the premiere was more of an individual test of will and it was very character driven, we got to spend a lot of time with them, this finale is more of a demonstration of a full-scale attack and how our main characters react to that. And the changelings are a pretty powerful army, with their whole ability being transforming into our other main character ponies, which makes the ponies race to the elements of harmony that are all the way across on the other side of the castle a bit more challenging. But it is here that we get a really well choreographed fight scene. The element of harmony versus the entire changeling army, which, as someone that didn't know the show at all coming into it, I never could have expected this. The army actually succeeds in stopping our main character ponies from getting to the elements of harmony, but this gives Twilight Sparkle just enough time to free Princess Cadence, who then frees Shining Armor, who then frees the entire rest of the kingdom by using the power of marriage, and sends Chrysalis and her army team rocketing out of the sky for now. I don't think this is going to be the last we see of her, and while I've never seen the show, like I mentioned, I did have a DeviantArt account in 2015, so I'm certain she's a pretty popular character. And with her name restored and her kingdom safe, the entirety of Canterlot recognizes Twilight Sparkle as a hero of war. And with the day saved once again and the wedding successfully weddinged, everyone gets that happy ending, which is also the perfect description for what's about to happen in this video. I had a bunch of you in the comments recommending that I watch season 2, and I'm really glad that I did, because it was basically a step up in every single way. And I know that this video was a bit more reviewy than the first one, but I genuinely just had a lot more to talk about this time around, and I wanted to get my thoughts fully out on it. So if you guys enjoyed watching me watch the show, then I'll definitely be diving into season 3 soon. So make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure that notification bell is ringing so you don't miss out on that season 3 video when it drops. And if you made it this far into the video, be sure to comment who your favorite character is and why it is Fluttershy, because she's the best character. Anyways, it looks like my duck just shapeshifted into a slightly bigger duck, and he's about to do a wicked backflip, so I gotta go see this.